All right, so today we're going to devote ourselves to a subject near and dear to my heart, which is chicken. Chicken! Chicken is probably the most versatile meat out there, the most economical meat out there, and the reality is if you go by the Kroger and you shop at the right time, whoop, just drop that name. Shouldn't have done that. I'm trying to keep brand names out of here because I'm going to try to make them SOBs pay me when I put a name in there. But anyway, when you go by the grocery store, you want to look for your chicken whenever you get a chance. Watch for it to be on sale, man. If you look close enough, man, them whole chickens that go on sale for about 99 cents a pound, and then if it's after Thanksgiving or Christmas or something, they may even get a bit lower than that. Anyway, get you some whole chickens and freeze them and keep them in the freezer. Well, that was my plan. My plan was to show you about cooking whole chickens because everybody out there is asking me the same thing. They say, well, Rob, teach me how to make a gumbo. Well, that's kind of a long story, and it starts with chicken, and it starts with a whole chicken. But we're not going to get into that today. I got to tell you this right now, though. This is leading up to making a gumbo because you know you got to walk before you can run. Anywho, what we're talking about today, though, is just the chicken part. The chicken part that we start with. Now, like I said, I was going to show you how to do a couple of whole chickens because that's the best way to go. In fact, whipped up to the grocery store. Oh, look at that baby. You know what that is? That is a 7¼ pound chicken. You shop around, you can find these babies huge, huge. Now, back when I was a kid, man, they was little bitty. I mean, you was lucky to find a 4-pound chicken in the grocery store. In fact, and the price tags, now this is to let you know how long ago that was. One of the most fond memories I remember of my dad, right after he and my mom got divorced, was I'd hang out with him every weekend. Well, we went by the Star Supermarket down here on Highway 49 South, whip in there and grab us up a couple of whole chickens and fry them for the weekend. 32 cents a pound. Oh my gosh, those were the days. But at the same time, that's the only time I remember from my childhood of a price tag like that, with the exception of one other. The one other one was we was actually going to my grandparents' house at when I was about 5 years old, pulled up in the 63 Pontiac Grand Prix. Gas was 15 cents a gallon. 15 cents a gallon. Now, I know that's a long time ago, and I do digress, but my point is coming around in a little bit. What I'm trying to say is that we're in the dead of summer right now. It is hot, hot outside, and a lot of folks complain about the AC bill in the summer, as well they should. But the reality is you're probably using more of that AC than you think, and that's because a lot of people are cooking in the summer. Now, ain't nothing wrong with cooking in the summer, but don't be foolish about it. You know, you put something in the oven, like two whole chickens, and you try to roast them for an hour or two, or maybe 30 minutes even if you're doing them on high. Man, that'll heat up your house like crazy, and everybody heat you put in your house, you got to pull it out. That is in the summertime. That's why you cook in the wintertime. And in fact, that's why our holidays fall during the cooler parts of the year. Christmas, Thanksgiving, and even Easter. It's still cool around Easter time. But I digress again. Anyway, what I want to talk to you about today was I was going to do some whole chickens. And I came up with this real cool idea and a cool way to do it, where you could actually freeze the chicken ahead of time, and you could put him down in an Instapot, pressure cook him from frozen, and then you put a little convection oven on the top of that, and you brown him up a little bit, and boom, you got a whole chicken. And I'm going to tell you why that don't make sense in retrospect, because I like to cook 2 chickens at a time. If you're going to go to the trouble, get you 2 chickens and cook up 2 chickens together, okay? So that way, you know, you're going to go to a lot of trouble. When you see me do that down the road, you're going to realize whole chickens, it's some trouble, but it's worth it. I don't mind trouble. I like convenience, but it's got to be worth it. And doing 1 chicken, you're going to get maybe pound and a quarter worth of white meat and maybe 3/4 pound worth of dark. And you need a heck of a lot more than that for a gumbo. 2 whole chickens will make you pretty good gumbo. But I digress again. Anywho, what we're going to do today, since we're in the dead of summer, I'm going to tell you this: you want to eat cool foods in the summer, and you don't want to cook on your stove and your oven more than you have to because you're heating up the whole dang house. So what we did was we whipped on up to our grocery store that will remain unnamed, and I got me some of these. These ain't bad. $2.49 a pound. You can get chicken breast $2.49 a pound regularly, man. The thing about a chicken breast is boneless, skinless. Pull them out of the pack, ready to go. Chicken breast is an incredibly versatile food. In other words, the main reason it's so versatile is because it doesn't have much of a taste. You say, well, why in the world would you buy something that don't have much of a taste? It's because it'll take on whatever you give it. So anybody out there's cooked plenty of chicken breast, I'm sure, but I'm going to show you today how to do it in a way in the middle of the summer without heating up the whole dang house. Okay? Now, we're going to take these frozen chickens that I got, because I did find them on sale, and we're going to stick them in the freezer. Now, the reason that Instapot idea, it just ain't going to work too good, is in order to get that chicken the way you want him, you basically need to pull him out of the package, get the giblets out, truss him real good, and then refreeze him in a freezer bag. Tell you why that don't work too good. Number one is, if you're going to long-term storage, you open yourself up some freezer burn. The other thing is, once you open up that package, yeah, you got it. All that stuff's going to be all over the kitchen, and you're already exposing your chicken to outside contamination. So if you were going to cook it right away, that makes sense. But if you're going to take it out of the pack, handle it some, and then put it back in a bag to freeze it and keep it, then you're opening it up and you're opening yourself up to some contamination. So that doesn't make much sense. So the better idea is, when these things come from the factory, I say factory, when they come from the factory, that right there, that's been sealed up, but that was done in a chicken plant. And the reason that's so important in the chicken processing plant is it's clean in there. They got those inspectors coming in all the time, and you can do the same thing with your cuts of meat. If you want to buy the whole, you see ones cryovac over that other wholesale place. Those are called prime cuts. Well, chicken, largely you can get a chicken as a whole chicken. So that's a prime cut, which means that when you open that bag, it's the first time it's been opened since that chicken was slaughtered. That's kind of important. So I'm going to take those whole chickens, I'm going to put them in the freezer. Okay? And I'm going to keep them. I'm going to hang on to them. I'm going to watch those sale items, get that out, watch the sale. That's the cat food thing going off, just in case you didn't know. Watch those sales and see when they get down to 99 cents a pound, go in there and get you about 4 of them. Just snatch them up quick as you can, because they're going to go fast. Now, ain't nothing wrong with them. They're on sale because they got more of them than they can sell normally, so they want to sell the same in a week with 200 that is they want to sell in a week with 100, and they just got 200 chickens. So there ain't nothing wrong with them. Just go ahead and buy them. They're not old. But then bring them home, freeze them in the packaging. It's going to take a little longer to thaw them out later on, but that way you have them all the way when you get ready to cook in the wintertime. We're not cooking in the winter. We're cooking in the summer. When I cook in the summer, I try to keep my oven and my stove to a minimum. That's why I love that Instapot. You've already heard me tell you, I love an Instapot. And we're fixing to see part of the reason why, but not this time. We got another thing we're going to do. The Instapot's going to come up later on. But what we're going to do today is we're going to do a process called sous vide. You probably heard all the rage, this sous vide. Well, you think it's some kind of fancy French cooking. It ain't no fancy French cooking. About as simple as you can get. But the cool thing about a sous vide is we're going to be able to cook that chicken, and we're going to be able to put him out of the package, shred it up, and have it ready for a really good chicken salad, and you're never going to have to touch the stove. You're never going to have to heat up your house. In fact, it's going to be so simple, you're going to freak out when I show you. But that's a long introduction. I'm telling you more than you want to know, probably. Kind of like when the judge used to tell me in court, used to say, Mr. Williamson, counselor, you need to land the plane, land the plane. So you asked me time, I'm going to teach you how to build a watch. Anyway, we're going to take these chicken breasts, and we're going to package them in a way and do all that kind of stuff. But we're going to get to that in a minute. But I wanted to give you an intro to let you know, when you look at that AC bill, and I know this is digressing, but I'm connecting it up. When you look at that AC bill and say, daggum, $250, that heat outside is what's killing you. That is partly true. But the other half of it is you the one killing you. Because you're putting all that heat in your house, because you're cooking on the stove, and you're cooking in the oven, and you're baking cakes, and you're frying chicken in a skillet on the oven, and it's heating up your house. And every time you do that, that chicken that you cooked that you thought's costing you about $2, probably more like 5 or 10, man, when you total it up. The only thing I'll tell you before we get off of here, just to prove what I'm saying. Entergy, I'm going to plug Energy because nobody can get the electricity from anybody but Energy around here. Energy's got an app. Get that app. That app will show you hour by hour just how much electricity you are using. And you're going to find out there's certain things in your house that are drawing a hell of a lot more power than you thought. I know. Am I connecting it up? I'm going to connect it up because we're coming back to sous vide. The fact is, you're conserving energy, you're conserving heat, you're not heating up your house, and you're saving money. So just see the two things in your house that are pulling a heck of a lot of electricity. The main one is your dryer. You'd be amazed. That dryer pulls a heck of a lot of electricity. So every time you run that dryer, don't run it longer than you have to. Every minute you running that dryer longer than you have to is probably costing you 50 cents to $1, and that adds up. Now the other thing that breathes a lot of heat is your oven and your stove, but as long as you use it for a short period, like scrambling some eggs or something, it ain't a problem. When you start trying to bake a cake or roast some chickens in the middle of the summer, heck, my AC wouldn't keep up with that. It just won't, not in the dead of summer if I'm trying to keep it 72. So just food for thought. This is part of what we're doing here. We're making it easy, and we're showing you something that's incredibly practical, but I'm also telling you doing it because it's smart. I don't try to save money because I'm cheap. I do it because I'm lazy. I'm lazy and I'm an engineer. Engineers are lazy. Engineers are always trying to get twice as much done in half as much time. And if we can do it, we will. Well, I'm getting twice as much done, and I'm getting it in half as much time, and I'm doing it with a heck of a lot less effort, okay? And part of what we're trying to show you here is when you're cooking chicken and you're gonna be putting it into something else, normally speaking, you know, I'll say this, I'd say whole chickens are the way to go, because whole chickens are cheaper. You get more out of them because you got all that extra stuff that normally goes to waste. Normally they just throw into dog food somewhere. Well, the only reason it's going into dog food is because they cut it off that chicken and they ain't got nobody to sell it to. But you can take that stuff, all that extra stuff that comes off of a roasted chicken, and you can make great stock out of it. And you can make great dark meat out of it. And that's what's gonna make a gumbo. But we're not making gumbo right now. It's the dead of summer, too hot for gumbo. We're making chicken salad. And chicken salad needs chicken breast. So even though I would normally say don't go for the convenience of a chicken that's already been cut up, in this instance it makes sense. Because even though we're paying more for that chicken, it's gonna make a heck of a lot less work for us. We're not gonna have to cook it the same way in the oven, which means you're saving a heck of a lot of electricity, and we're gonna be able to use it in so many different things. So once you get those chicken breasts cooked up, you shred them up, stick them in the fridge, put them in a Ziploc bag, and you got chicken salad for a month, man. So hope you get something out of it, but we're fixing to get right on into it. All right, first thing we need to talk about is our bags. When you're sous videing, you're gonna be putting something in a water bath, and you're gonna wanna put it in a hot bath for a period of time so that you can slow cook it like that. Now, a lot of folks are gonna say that, hey, maybe I got to go out there and buy me some kind of specialized bags for that. Well, they do make specialized bags for it, and you may want to look into them. I don't know. There's silicone bags. Also, this is something to be thinking about. If you really want to get smart down the road, you probably need to invest in a vacuum sealer if you hadn't already done it. Food Saver's got a fantastic one. I only plug Food Saver because all the other ones are, Food Saver's, you can buy it at that wholesale place. Remember the one we didn't want to put the name of on here? Anywho, but when you're starting out with just chicken breast, good old regular Ziploc, get the Ziploc brand because they're a lot thicker than a lot of other brands. But get you some Ziploc freezer bags. These are perfect for doing chicken breast in, as you'll see. You got the double seal on the top of them. They're rated up to 158 degrees. That's okay. We're going to 165, but the only reason that rating is there is these are BPA free, so they're not going to break down on anything like that. But anything past 158 for longer periods of time, they will develop leaks, especially right along this top seal. That's part of the reason we'll keep that top seal out of the water if we can at all help it, because if that stays in the water and it gets up too much, that notching in between right in there, that'll break down on you and it won't notch up and seal as good as it did before. So I'd only use them one time, but then again, we're only going to be using them one time. But we're going to use them one time to pack it, one time to store. You can freeze in these, freeze it ahead of time, and then put it in the sous vide after that. So that's what I wanted to at least let you know when you see in our video and we start working. These are the kind of bags that we're using. It's just regular Ziploc gallon freezer bags. Ready to get started on the sous vide apparatus. Filled up the tank with some water. This is a basic sous vide tank. It's a good size because it'll fit in your sink. If this thing doesn't fit in your sink, then it's going to be kind of tough to fill it up because you're going to have to pull that little spigot out, fill it from the sink on the nozzle, and it only fills about half as fast. This is a really good sized tank. Small enough to where it doesn't fill up the whole counter, but big enough to where you can cook most everything you're going to cook into it. If you're going to cook for a party or really get into this stuff, get a double wide tank. I've got one of those too. But anyway, we fill that up, and when we fill it up, we stick it down in the sink, under the faucet, turned it on hot water, and let it fill. The reason I say turn it on hot water is because it's going to take a good couple of minutes for this thing to fill up. That's a lot more water than you think it is. So that gives it a chance for the water to get in, heat up, and that way you start out with at least a lukewarm towards warm water. The more of a leg up you can give it, that's the less heat you're going to have to put into it with electricity and everything else, and the less time it's going to take to heat it up. But anyway, we got our tank ready, and before we get to the rack part of it, I want to show you what we're going to do with these chicken breasts. Same ones we just did. This is called a water displacement method. This way you don't need a vacuum sealer. Now, it don't get all the air out, but we do need to get a pretty good bit of air out of these or they're going to float. We don't want them floating. So we're going to put that down in the water and let it settle all the way down in there. Push it all the way down. Remember we left that little gap on the very end of our bag? Just that little bitty gap. We're going to push that all the way down in the water. Push even the seal down in there all the way until it gets to right there. Hold it to the side of the tank and seal it the rest of the way. Now, see there? Now that took all the air out of that bag. Easy peasy, right? You hear people talking about trying to get a straw and suck that air out and stuff. You're going to be putting it in a water bath anyway, so why not use it? Like I said, work smarter, don't work harder. That's working smarter, man. So dang thing with this one, we're getting it down in that water, all the way down in there, except for the last little bit of that seal. Press that up against the side, pop it closed. Now, this is real important. Make sure those seals are completely sealed, because the last thing you want is this stuff opening up. See, when we get done, this water is going to be just as clean as when we started. And that means that if it's just as clean when we started and we dump it back out, you don't even have to wash the tank. Did I say this was easy? You don't even have to wash the tank when you're done because you're not dirtying anything up. Everything stays inside of your bag. So we do that before we put the rack or anything else in there because we wanted to get the water out, or the air out of those bags. So that's why we did that water displacement method early on. Now we turn attention to the rack. This is a basic sous vide rack, and yes, I would go on the internet and buy one of these. They are worth it, and you're gonna see why. Depending on the kind of food you're gonna put in there, we gotta hold it in place, but we don't want it touching the sides and we don't want it touching each other. We want the water to be able to flow completely around there. So what we're gonna do, and that's the reason these sides are buffered. You see, we got little spaces in between them. So we're only gonna be using 2 racks because we only got 2 bags. You could put 4 bags in here. In fact, I've cooked 4 ribeye steaks in that tank before, and they fit just fine. Now, it might take a little while from frozen, but that's another show. Anyway, we're gonna come in about 3 over, which really, if you had a space there, it's 1, 2, 3, that's about the width of 4. So we're putting them at the 5th and the 6th. But you can put them anywhere you like, you know. It ain't like there's a right and a wrong way to do everything. You can do it any way you want to, but just makes more sense to me. Now, we're gonna take that rack, and we're gonna slide it down in here. Now, let me pull it in here where you can see what we're doing here. Anyway, we're gonna put that to the side of this end because we're gonna put our sous vide wand over in this end. All right, and so now, see that? We're gonna fold that over like that. So now it's doubled up, but our seal's up high. Did I tell you it wasn't gonna go in the water? Look at that, it's gonna be right at the top. Right at the top. We did the same thing with this one. Double it over, slide it down in there like that. Now look, as you see, we got just a little bit more water in there than we thought we probably needed. That's okay. Take my handy dandy picture here. I'm gonna take a little bit of that water out. And there just ain't no reason to go to the trouble of doing all this stuff if you're gonna have to heat up that much more water. All you need is enough water in there to immerse them. And those are some big chicken breasts. So we wanna leave just a immerse them. Now I'm looking at that still. I'm a little bit concerned. The only reason I'm concerned is I don't want that under the water if I can help it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull him out, slide it in there like that. Pull this one out the same way. I wanted to double them over because I don't like all this stuff trailing on the tops. But you know what? Ain't gonna hurt nothing. So when we put them in there, we'll just fold them down in like this. Still have plenty of room, still have plenty of circulation. So this is our sous vide one. Let me unplug this baby so I can show you what I'm doing here. All right, so when you plug that baby in, it comes on automatically. Boom, and we're ready to go. And that's where we set everything on. Now I'm gonna put this lid on at the start. The reason I'm gonna do that is it'll actually position my hole right where I want it on the back. And that way when I get ready to put my wand in, it's real easy to line it up. So screw that baby down good. Nice and tight. All right, now we can check on the inside here. See how we got our, that one's there, I was there. I'm trying to keep my seals out of the water. I'm pushing them to the side. Now there's plenty of room in there for that wand to heat its water, flow all the way through there. That's all there is to it. Now here's what's kind of cool about this. See those seals? Since those seals are sealing up that food inside that bag, that food's going to cook inside that bag, but nothing's going to get out. So this water is going to be just as clean when you get done as when you started. Now the reason that's so important is when we get done, all we got to do is pull these bags out, dump that water out, and we don't even have to clean this. We don't have to clean none of this. We just dump it out. It never touched food. It never touched anything else. Doesn't even need soap, so long as those seals stay closed, and they will. So this is about as easy to clean up. You've heard of things that, you cook the dish and you only mess up one pot. You ain't even messing up a pot. So this is about as easy as it gets. Now I'm gonna program this baby. And I'm gonna show you in a way. Everybody knows you wanna cook chicken breast to 165 degrees internal. And the reason being is that that's when they're completely pasteurized and you kill off any of the, most, not all, but almost all of the harmful bacteria that are gonna be in there. And that means that 165 is a good doneness for chicken. Well, the difference with the sous vide is we're actually cooking it to 165, but not over that. You can't overcook in a sous vide because it never gets above the temperature that you're eventually cooking it to. It gets up there close and then it tapers off to the top and then it stays there. Now, here's the key to that is you can cook it too long, because if you were to leave these in here, say 4 hours, well, they'd turn to mush, kind of like a slow cooker, like a crock pot. When you do a slow cooker, you're tenderizing meat because whatever fibrous tendons there are in there, as you break those proteins down, it's going to get tenderer and tenderer until finally it just falls apart. Well, our chicken breasts are already going to be tender at about an hour. So we're not going to cook them way past that. But if you were cooking, say, chuck roast or maybe a rump roast or anything like that, you would want to cook it about 4 hours. It'll tenderize meat like you wouldn't believe so long as you leave it in there longer, but even at a low temperature. But we're only cooking chicken breast today, nice and simple. So we're going to set a temp. And that was 125 because I was cooking some steaks this past weekend. Damn, they were good. So we're going to take this all the way up to 165, and that's our good temperature. Now, we also want to think, how long do we want to cook these? Well, these have not been frozen, fresh from the start. I give that about 1 hour. I like an hour on my chicken breast. Most stuff takes right at about an hour. Now, if we were to take these exact same packages after we'd sealed all the air out of them now, mind you, and we'd have put them in the freezer, guess what? You can store your chicken breast to cook later, and you can pull them straight out of the freezer and put them straight in the sous vide. Now, if they're going from frozen, though, you want to get added on an hour, because it's going to take an hour for your chicken breast to thaw at that lower temperature than you normally would, and it's going to take that time to get it up to speed and still cook it. So to be safe, I'd tack on an hour. So if these were frozen, I'd be putting them in for 2 hours. I'm not going to do that. These are fresh, straight from the grocery about an hour and a half ago. All right, so we're going to go over here to our time. And for time, we're going to put in 1 hour. There we go. So we're ready to go. Now, when I hit that in the middle, boom. So now we're starting. Now what'll happen is it'll flip back and forth. That is the temperature it is right now before the heat goes to it. So see, we had 93-degree heat coming straight from our sink. So that gives us at least a start. Now that's how much time is left on the timer. It'll go back and forth between the temperature and the timer until it kicks in. Now it'll give you a little bell. It'll go ding ding, and that lets you know that it got up to the 165 and it started its timer to cook for an hour. When it's done at the end of an hour, it'll ding again. I will tell you this though, with this particular model, and hopefully they'll pay me some money somewhere down the road, it doesn't shut off at an hour. So when you hear that bell, if you're in the other room watching TV or something and you miss it, it's going to keep on cooking. But we probably ain't going to worry about that because we're going to get back here in time anyway. So right now, this is all we had to do. I mean, you talk about freaking simple. I mean, all I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to wipe up this little bit extra water around here. I got a nice clean countertop. Don't want to get it all messy and stuff, but wipe up that little bit extra water and go to town. I mean, I can go watch TV. I can do whatever I want to, and I'm cooking. So part of what I'm trying to show you is what we're heating here is not air. We're heating water. By heating water and keeping it in a vessel like this, that means that the only heat we're losing is whatever heat is radiating off this tank, which is a lot less than what would be coming off of an oven or a stove. Part of the reason, this is getting more technical than you want to, you ask me the time, I'll tell you how to be able to watch. But part of the reason is this water that's flowing around in here, that is cooking by what's called conduction. Conduction is when your heat travels from like a solid material into another solid material. It can be a liquid, it can be a solid, but it's going from one material to a totally separate material. That is conduction. What you do when you cook in a stove or in an oven, a lot of that is convection. That means that the air around it is moving and transporting the heat. It's a very inefficient way to cook, which means that this little baby right here is not going to use hardly any electricity at all. And yes, we're going to cook this chicken start to finish with this method, and that's the only cooking we're going to do. That's why it's so simple. That's why it's so basic. Now you're saying, oh, Rob, why didn't you do anything else to them? Why didn't you put some butter in there and some herbs and all this other kind of good stuff? Well, you could do that. You could do that. You can do whatever you want to. I'm trying to show you that if you're making a chicken salad, all you got to do is cook your chicken. I keep my salt down. You can always put some salt on later. I didn't put any pepper on. I can always put some pepper on later. I add what I want in the sauce that I'm going to use on the chicken. And this way, they're basic to where I can put them in any recipe I want. And I don't have to worry about, dang, I wish I hadn't put the salt on those. Man, that parsley's not going to go good in that dish. I'm going to add that later, after I cook it. I know a lot of folks say, man, you got to cook everything from the beginning and salt as you go and season as you go. Every chef I've heard says that. Let me ask you a question. Does salt change? No, salt does not change when you cook it. Salt basically dissolves in the water, and the same salt you're tasting on the end of the dish is the same salt you tasted in the beginning. The only reason they're saying to cook and season as you go is so that it gets inside of it. If you're doing a dish or you're stirring it up, you don't want pockets of salt. Have you ever eaten anything with pockets of salt? No. As long as you cook the way a normal person would cook, you can put salt on the end of everything. And me personally, I got heart issues, and I know a lot of people out there need to watch the sodium. This is what's so beautiful about cooking at home like this, man. You don't have to watch it. You can just leave everything out and then just season it as you want when the time comes. Now, what's so great about that is if I make a chicken salad with no salt in it, I can put a salt-free seasoning on it. But guess what? If somebody else wants my chicken salad sandwich, all they got to do is put a little salt and pepper on it. It's the same difference. It's the same thing. So that's why we are not seasoning these at all. Now you might say, don't they need a little fat? Now if I was cooking something really, really dry, that'd be one thing. These can be fairly dry, but here's the deal. All chicken has at least a little bit of fat to it. So they're gonna cook up fine. They're gonna cook up fine. And they're gonna come out fine. I'll show you. When those get done, we'll show you how easy it is when they get done, and we'll pull them out. But for right now, in a sense, what we're doing is we're poaching. But we're actually not even poaching in a liquid because these aren't in a liquid. They're in the bag. The bags are in the water, but the water's not touching the food. So this is not poaching. This is similar to poaching though, because we're cooking on very, very low heat, and we're cooking up to a very specific temperature that we won't overcook. That's why they're gonna come out so juicy. The reason they're not gonna be dried out, the reason we ain't gotta slather them like heck with butter right now is that they're not losing moisture while they cook. Same reason you let a steak rest, same reason you let a chicken rest after you cook it is you got to give a chance for all those juices that were released by the heat to get back into the meat. Well, guess what? This doesn't need to rest. Why? Because it's not only cooking, but as it's done cooking, it holds all those juices right next to it. So as soon as that starts cooling back down, it's going to suck those juices right back up in there. And we are going to let these cool down when we get them done, because we're going to want to shred them, and we're going to shred them by hand. And I'm going to show you about how easy that is too. But the cool thing about it is, rather than leaving this chicken, say, out on a counter, like if you brought it out of the roasting out of the oven, you're not exposing it to the air when it cools down. You're going to pull those bags out once they're done, and you're going to leave them sealed, and you're going to put them out on this counter. And we're just going to leave them there. And we can leave them there for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. The key is they've been heated up to a temperature that is sufficient to kill any of the salmonella type bacteria that would be in there. But guess what? When they're done, they're not being opened. How simple is that? If you take these out of the package, I'm talking about the package you got from the grocery store. And you pack them in the bags like I'm talking about. And this same displacement method, you don't have to set up the whole sous vide apparatus. Just get you a bowl of water and stick it in the sink, or heck, fill the sink up a little bit. Displace them, seal them, pack them just like that in the freezer. Now think about it for a second. If you're packing them like that in the freezer and they're ready to sous vide, and then you're pulling them out after they've sous vided the 2 hours they need to both thaw and cook, and then you're putting them out on the counter and you're letting it cool, and you open that package, guess what? From the whole time that you bought them at the supermarket, you opened them up, you packaged them, you froze them, you stored them for 6 months, and then you turned around and cooked them. From that whole time, that chicken has only been exposed to air the very, very short time that you took it out of the package and put it into these, because you never had to open the bags. This is a perfect, perfect thing. It saves so much time because you're not only able to store it easily, put it in the freezer bags, but you're cooking in the same bags that you're freezing in. How freaking good is that? So we're gonna let this cook, right like I said, right up to 106. You see, it's a little slow. That's why I said, give it a leg up on the sink. But once it gets up to temp, it'll do a ding, ding, ding. It'll let us know, and then we'll let it cook for that hour. See, the timer ain't started yet. It will start once it gets up to that 165, and then we'll let it go for an hour, and when it gets back and gets done, we'll come back, we'll pull them out, I'll show you how pretty they are, and then we'll lay them out on the counter and let them cool for about half an hour to an hour, so they'll be easy to work with. All right, so timer went off, and we are ready to pull these babies out of here. First of all, pull this wand out of here. Slides right out like that. And we got us a towel. I have just a little bit of water on it, but it's going to dry off real fast. Remember, that was cooking at a pretty decent temp. Now, lid comes off. Sit that over by the sink. And pull these babies out of here. Now, they're still hot, so I'm going to be careful with them as we pull them out. I'm going to lay them to the side. Like this. Yes, that water's hot, hot. Still hot, hot. And like that. Now, I'm going to take this whole thing, and the cool thing about this is we're going to pour this down the sink. That hot water is actually kind of helpful, because when you pour that hot, hot water down the sink, that much of it all at one time, it's going to loosen up any grease that you got in your pipes. So it actually helps to clean your pipes out a little bit. That's just a little added benefit. Nothing big, but since that's reasonably hot, see, we can just set that to the side. That's going to dry off just fine on its own. See that? That's already dry. Unplug it. Wrap her back up. Basically, this will actually fit right down in there like that. Put our spare rods there. And put a top on. And that right there just sits on the counter. Sits on wherever you need to store it. Cool thing about that is now it's hot enough, it's going to dry on its own, and you didn't even have to wash it. Now, wasn't that cool? Now, here's our chicken breast. They don't look like much at the moment, but let me tell you. See, that's just what cooked out of them, but they're still in their own juice. So now we're going to leave those out here on the counter because we want them to cool down a little bit. Right now, they're fairly hot. In fact, let's see here. A good thermometer on it right there. See, that's still 151 degrees. That didn't come down hardly at all. We want those to cool down to about 100 to where they're easy to work with. And then they'll be easy to work with because we want to shred these, but I'm going to show a real quick and easy way that you can actually shred them by hand. So, cool thing is, I know you probably don't have one of these infrared thermometers. They're handy dandy if you get a chance to buy one. But if you grab onto these bags and just kind of feel them, you wait till you can hold it in your hand. If you can hold it in your hand, then you can work with it in your hand. So that way you don't even need a thermometer to know when those could cool down. But it's going to take probably a good half hour or so. Cool thing is now, we can leave these out on the counter because they're sealed up tight in this bag, and everything that was in that bag that could have been contamination is dead. Those are not going to be having any contamination until we open that seal up. So we're going to leave them sealed. And in fact, you could leave them sealed like this and put them in the fridge overnight if you want to. The problem is once they get too too cold, they're going to be hard to manipulate with your fingers. You want to be able to shred that meat with your fingers, and I'm going to show you how easy that is too. So we're going to let those cool down, and once they get a chance to cool down, we'll come back and we will go to the next step. Let our chicken breast cool down a little bit. Now, see what kind of temp we're looking at. 106. That's getting down there close enough. Now, as you can see, we've got a pretty dang good bit of juice left over in there, and I'm just going to tell you right now, we are not going to waste that. Don't waste it, because if you throw that down the drain, you're a fool, because that's half your flavor right there that we can use in a chicken stock somewhere down the road. Anyway, first of all, let's put these aside. I'm going to try not to take too much time on this, because we're already going way over on my video. But this is the first time we're going to open this bag. Now, these are very clean hands. I washed them thoroughly before we start this, because those are the instruments I'm actually going to be using in this. Now I'm going to pull one of these babies out, and I'm putting it over here in this container, but that's just to hold the bag in place. In other words, I'm not even going to mess that container up. So put that baby over in a bowl, because that's what I want to use him for. And yeah, if you're watching me carefully, just grab him, just like that, and just ply it between your fingers. You'll get a feel for it. This is going to come in real handy down the road when you're trying to do a whole chicken and you're trying to debone a whole chicken. Because when you're shredding like this, you get to where you get really good at it. And basically you can just shred that baby up into bite-sized chunks without ever having to pull out the tongs and pull out all kinds of other utensils and all. I just found this is the easiest way to do it. And then these little bags, see, all you got to do is just shred that chicken up just a piece at a time. And as you do it, let it fall off into your bowl. That's the way you shred up a chicken breast. Now, we're going to take a break here, because I'm going to have to go through these chicken breasts and shred them real quick. But I will time it, and I will tell you just how long it's going to take me to shred this 4 pounds of chicken. All right? And we're back. Take a break. D-U-double-N, done. That was, I thought I was going to save a lot of time on that video, but you know how long that took me? 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I had 4.15 pounds of chicken to start with, and now it's all shredded up nice and loose. I will give you a little advice. You might get a little tired after, if you don't do it a whole lot. Once you build your fingers up, you'll be fine. But part of the deal is once you get into some of these pieces, use your those thumbnails, and just pinch it through. Think of them like 2 little knives. And as you're going through that chicken, if you find you a chunk or something in there where you need to get to it, just pinch it between your fingers, but don't try to do it just with your fingers. Use those nails. Just think of it as tiny little knives on the ends of your fingers that you can use to tear through stuff. But that's how we got that done. Now, part of the reason I was going to tell you is we saved this liquid. See, we got a little bit of liquid left in both of these bags. And what we're going to do with that, I got me a freezer container here. Let me move this out of the way. Make a little space over here. I buy about 50 of these, and I keep them. Now, make sure they're freezer containers, because they're the ones that'll hold up for you a lot bit better. And I actually save that broth. You might say, dang, Rob, that's a little extreme. Well, maybe. If you think so, don't do it. But I ain't throwing that down the drain. I can tell you that right now. I'm not throwing that down the drain. So I'm saving both of these. And what I'll do is I'll wind up putting that in the freezer. And you might say, well, dang, Rob, if you save that in the freezer and you try to thaw it out, maybe there's going to be something in it. Well, when I do wind up using this, guess what I'm going to do with it? I'm actually going to take that, and I'm going to add it on top of whenever I cook me up some bones and some stuff for stock. Pour that in there with it. So I'm actually going to cook that with the stock when I make a stock. So save that, keep it in the freezer, add to it, subtract from it, keep them running. I will tell you this though, when you start freezing leftovers like this and you're going to keep them for a while, get you a label maker. I know this sounds crazy, but you know what? I'm in a crazy mood today. But get you a label maker. These things are about 15 bucks. You might say, well, that don't matter. The bags are made where you can write on them. Have you ever looked at bags in your freezer 6 months later and tried to read what you wrote on them while you was trying to? No. Get you a label maker and put you a label on there and maybe say CHBR, chicken broth. That way you know you got you some chicken broth staying in the freezer. And you'll incorporate that down there later. Now I touched some stuff, so let's wash our hands real quick like. Make sure we're nice and clean. The next step in here is going to be pretty easy. Remember we have these 2 bags here? 2 bags. This one's probably a little bit maybe, but that's the one we cooked in. Well, guess what? That chicken that was in there, why would we throw that away? Shoot, no, we're going to take that chicken and put it in that bag. Heck yeah. Ain't no reason to be messing up another one. Just be kind of careful because you don't want to be dropping any of it on the counter. Take all that good chicken we got. We just got finished sous vide and put our time and care and effort into. Put it all in that bag. There we go. We're going to zip that baby up a little bit. Get on the side too. Get that air out of it. Let's see about how much that is. Now I got everything sealed away. I ain't to worry about my. Go. 40.3 ounces. So, 40.3. Make sure of that. About 42 ounces. 42 ounces. So we're looking at right about 1.5 pounds. Yeah, we cooked a little bit of something out of there, but that's a pretty good mess of chicken. And I will show you another little trick. Leave that little corner open, pack him on down nice and tight, and seal him up. There you go. You talk about some kind of good. Put that in the fridge, and now you got something ready for your chicken salad. Now this right here, I mean, a lot of people just throw bags away. The only reason I'm not throwing this one away is I'm gonna stick it in the fridge because I'll probably take me some trash, kind of like that package that I pulled the chicken out of. You take that stuff and throw it in your trash right away, stank. Man, people wonder why they got to take the trash out once every 2 days because they throw in chicken in the dang trash. Seal it up in that bag after you're done. Use those, that way you keep your trash from getting so damn bad. Seal stuff up before you throw it away. Anyway, all you got is this one pot. The only reason we got this one is because I didn't shred the chicken in the bag. I wanted you to be able to see it. I want to just see how the technique goes. So that's the only reason. But you can actually take that one bag, take a chicken breast, put him up in there, shred him in that bag. You can feel it. You get to the point. The reason your hands are such a useful tool is they've got tactile feedback. You can feel things. You can feel the difference between bone. You can feel the difference between gristle. You can feel the difference between scrap. You can even feel the difference between the dark meat and the white meat when you're changing over in the middle there, and the fat that goes in there with it. So your fingers are important tools in the kitchen. They're probably the most important tools you got. So use them. Use them. Anywho, that's that. Now I only got one pot to clean. Put that hand to so that was our episode on sous vide chicken breast. Hope you learned something. Like my dad used to say, gonna learn you something, son. But anywho, we're gonna take that, and down the road, another show down the road, we're gonna make up a good salad dressing. And when I say a salad dressing, I'm talking about for a chicken salad. And we're gonna make our own mayonnaise for that. And that's when we have to whip out the food processor. That's a whole nother show. And then we're gonna take that as components and put it together, a little bit of celery, a little bit of onion, and some good stuff, man. Maybe throw a few capers in there on the end. Make us a good chicken salad. But this is all we did for today, or at least for this episode. And hope you learned something, and I hope it comes in handy. If you got any comments, put them in there. If you like the video, say something. If you don't like it, well, just ignore it. Don't say nothing negative. Why in the world is everybody out there all the time? You know what? Your life's too short, so spend as much of time as you can arguing with strangers on the internet. Anyway, y'all be good. Have a good weekend.